the voice of humanity. The Salem witch trials, how fear destroyed a community. Sometimes a whisper is enough to silence an entire town's conscience. In the bitter winter of 1692, in a small Puritan village called Salem, Massachusetts, a storm was brewing. Not one of wind or snow, but of suspicion, paranoia, and mass hysteria. Salem was a deeply religious place. The people believed in hard work, strict moral codes, and the constant battle between God and the devil. Life was simple, but hard, and beneath the surface of every prayer and every sermon, there was a lingering fear, the fear of sin, of damnation, and of witches. It began with two young girls. 9-year-old Betty Paris, the daughter of the local minister, and her cousin Abigail Williams started exhibiting strange behaviors. They screamed, convulsed, and claimed to be attacked by invisible forces. Nothing in their surroundings explained it. The town physician was called, and when he couldn't find a physical cause, he offered a chilling diagnosis: witchcraft. The news spread like wildfire. Who was attacking these children? Who had allowed the devil into their home? When pressed, the girls accused 3 women. Tituba, a Caribbean enslaved woman owned by Betty's father, considered an outsider in every way. Sarah Good, a homeless beggar often seen muttering to herself. Sarah Osborne, an older woman who rarely attended church and was known for violating Puritan norms. All 3 were arrested and brought before the court. In a society gripped by religious extremism and a constant fear of the devil's presence, these women were already marked. Under pressure, Tituba confessed. She said yes, she had spoken with the devil, and there were others in Salem who served him too. That confession changed everything. What followed was not justice, but a tidal wave of fear, and fear, once unchained, is unstoppable. More girls came forward with similar symptoms. More names were shouted in courtrooms. People turned on their neighbors. A strange look, a bad dream, a personal grudge. Any of it could become evidence. Within weeks, dozens of people were accused of witchcraft. And not just outcasts and outsiders, even respected members of the community. Farmers, ministers, mothers, children were named. The line between truth and imagination began to blur. The trials became theatrical. In court, the afflicted girls would scream, writhe, and faint as the accused were brought in. These spectral attacks were seen as evidence. If a girl screamed in your presence, you were guilty. No proof was required, no logic applied. One of the most heartbreaking cases was that of Rebecca Nurse. She was 71 years old, deeply religious, kind, and widely respected. But someone accused her. The girls screamed her name in court. Despite her clean reputation, she was convicted and sentenced to death. The town was stunned. If even Rebecca Nurse could be hanged, then no one was safe. Another victim, Giles Corey, refused to enter a plea when accused. For this, he was subjected to a brutal punishment, pressed to death with heavy stones placed on his chest. As he lay dying, his only words were, "More weight." He never confessed. In just a few months, more than 200 people were accused of witchcraft. 19 were hanged. 1 crushed to death. Several died in prison. The method of survival? Confess. Admit you were a witch, accuse others, and you might be spared. Deny it. Stand by your innocence, and you'd face the noose. This perverse logic turned the court into a factory of lies. People confessed to crimes they never committed just to save themselves. Others accused friends, neighbors, even family to avoid suspicion. And all the while, the judges believed they were doing God's work. But not everyone agreed. As the hysteria grew, some began to question what was happening. Ministers like Increase Mather, one of the most influential clergymen of the time, warned against relying on spectral evidence, visions and dreams. He famously said, "It is better that 10 suspected witches escape than one innocent person suffer." By 1693, public opinion had shifted. The governor of Massachusetts, William Phips, stepped in. He dissolved the special court handling the trials and prohibited further arrests. Many of the accused were released, but for those who had already died, it was too late. Years passed, but the shame remained. In 1697, the Massachusetts General Court declared a day of fasting and soul-searching, an early acknowledgment that a terrible mistake had been made. In 1711, financial compensation was offered to the families of the victims. But money could never replace lives taken, nor erase the trauma. It wasn't until 1957, over 250 years later, that the state of Massachusetts formally apologized. And in 2001, the last accused individuals were officially exonerated. The Salem witch trials are often remembered as a tragic episode of superstition gone wild. But they are more than that. They are a mirror. They show us how fear can spread faster than truth, how systems of power can be corrupted by emotion, how justice can be twisted by the hunger for order, certainty, and control. They show us that in times of panic, even the most civilized communities can abandon reason. Because the trials weren't about magic or witches. They were about power, about fear, about how easy it is to destroy lives when we let paranoia rule. Today, Salem is a quiet town filled with museums, monuments, and tourists. But beneath the surface lies a deep lesson, a warning carved into the very soil. Never let fear replace truth. Never let justice be silenced by the mob. Never forget what we are capable of when we stop questioning. Because the witches of Salem were never witches at all. They were people, and they died not because they were evil, but because they were different.